What's going on, everybody? Kalibus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G and going over whether or not it's actually a good phone to buy in 2023. Now, if you do end up wanting to learn more about this phone, be sure to check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So with the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G, we're getting a 6.6-inch 120Hz Super AMOLED display. We're getting a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 390, and a 19.5:9 aspect ratio. So overall, in pretty much every way, we are getting a really nice display here. At 6.6 inches, it definitely is a decent size. So if you're going to be on your phone a bit more, especially consuming content or even reading where you want things to be maybe a bit easier to see, things are going to be nice. It's definitely large enough to give you a good experience. And we're also getting really good image quality. The Super AMOLED gives us nice bright colors, and the viewing angles are also really good. So if you're outside in the sun, for example, the phone is still going to be pretty easy to see. With the 1080p resolution, everything is going to be nice and sharp. And with the 120Hz refresh rate, the movement on the screen is going to be a bit faster and smoother, making the phone feel a bit more premium to use. So overall, if you are looking for a more affordable mid-range phone that has a nice display, you're definitely not going to go wrong with this phone. Now for storage, with the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G, we're getting 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion as well. So definitely plenty of storage. For the average user, you're most likely not going to fill this up. And I believe there is another version of this phone that has 256GB. So if you're really a heavy user, maybe you're someone who's constantly downloading apps and games and stuff like that, just keep in mind, you can get even more storage. And of course, the microSD card expansion doesn't hurt either. So if you are looking for something that has plenty of storage, you're definitely not going to go wrong here. For security features, the A34 5G does have Face Unlock, and it has a nice in-display fingerprint scanner, so definitely a more premium design. But let's give it a try. There we go. One more time. And there we go. So as you can see, real fast and responsive. No issues at all. Now for the camera setup, with the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G, up front, we got kind of a water drop notch here for the selfie camera. Not quite as good as a hole punch, but compared to other water drop notches that kind of like take up the entire bezel, it's definitely not nearly as bad. Now this camera is 13 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 48 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 5 megapixel macro camera. And then for video, the A34 5G has a max recording quality of 4K in both the rear and front cameras, so definitely nice to see there. In general, for what it is, this phone does have a really nice camera, and on one hand, the photo quality isn't quite as good as something like an S21 FE, for example, but considering that is a much higher end phone, and this is more of an affordable device, you can really only expect so much. But again, for what it is, I do think the photo quality here is great, and for the average user, you're really not going to need a whole lot more than this. We're also getting some pretty good features here, including both an ultra-wide camera and a macro camera, and again, this phone can record 4K videos too. So yeah, if you are looking for a good camera setup, the A34 5G is a great choice. Now to give you an idea of what it can do, here's some pictures taken with the A34 5G, and again, I do think this phone has some real good photo quality. So for the average user, whether you're taking pictures for more professional purposes, maybe you're like a real estate agent, for example, and you want to get pictures of a home or something like that, maybe you're taking pictures for like Instagram or Twitter, or simply just using Snapchat or sending photos to friends and family. No matter what, the A34 5G is good enough to get the job done. So again, in general, if you're looking for a phone that has a really nice camera but still is more on the affordable side, this phone is definitely a great choice. Now when it comes to RAM and processor, with the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G, we're getting 6GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 1080 processor. And with this phone, the performance is actually pretty good. On one hand, it's still definitely not flagship level, but I feel like for the average user, especially for more basic activities, there's definitely more of a diminishing return when it comes to getting a phone that's faster and faster past a certain point. And I feel like the A34 5G is really getting to that point, because with this phone, if you're really just browsing the web or watching a couple YouTube videos every now and then, between this and a much higher end device, you're probably not going to see an insane difference. So in general, if you're not really a super heavy user, then performance wise, this phone is probably all you're going to need. And for that matter, even if you are going to be on your phone quite a bit, doing maybe even more demanding activities like mobile gaming, while again, it's still not the fastest phone in the world, it still is going to handle that kind of thing perfectly fine. So in general, if you are looking for a more affordable phone that still has pretty good performance, you're definitely not going to go wrong with the A34 5G. Now I did run a benchmark test on this phone using Geekbench 6, and here are the results I got. Now what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then comparing your results to these, and that's going to give you a better idea of where this phone stands performance wise compared to your current device, because depending on what you have, this phone may or may not actually be a performance upgrade. If you have something like a Samsung Galaxy S10, for example, so basically like an older flagship phone, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure the S10 is still faster than this. But on the other hand, if you have something like a Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, I can tell you from experience, the A34 5G is quite a bit faster than that. So yeah, it really just depends on what you have, but in general, I feel like for the average user, the performance on this phone is definitely going to be good enough for most things. Now for the battery, with the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G, we're getting a really large 5000 mAh battery that supports 25 watt fast charging. So in pretty much every way, this is a great battery. At 5000 mAh, this is definitely one of the larger batteries you can get. So if the battery life and overall longevity is important to you, this phone will be a great choice. And with 25 watt fast charging, despite not being the absolute best fast charging ever, it still will get the job done. But keep in mind, to actually utilize this, you will need a 25 watt fast charger, which this phone doesn't come with. In fact, it doesn't even come with a wall adapter, so definitely keep that in mind. But overall, the battery is definitely yet another great thing about this phone. Now for the software, this phone does have Android 13, and keep in mind, Samsung has some of the best software support, so down the road you can expect to get several other major updates too. Since it does come with Android 13, I believe it's going to get Android 14, 15, 16, and 17, so definitely good. As far as other features go, the A34 5G does have NFC, so if you like to use tap and pay, you'll be happy to know you can do that with this phone, no problem. But unfortunately, we're not getting a headphone jack with this phone, so if you have a normal pair of wired headphones, you can technically still use them, but you will need an adapter, which I guess it's not really a deal breaker, but if you do need to do it, it's probably going to be at least a little inconvenient. So if you're trying to make a choice between this phone and a phone that does have a headphone jack, definitely keep this in mind. But in conclusion, is the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G actually worth buying in 2023? Now, overall, I will say yes, just because the value you're actually getting for the money is honestly really good. This phone goes for around $327 factory unlocked, and while it's not officially launched in the US, so you're not going to get any crazy carrier deals, this phone has a really good display, a ton of storage, a really nice camera that can record 4K videos and has a bunch of different features, great performance, a really large battery, features like NFC, and really good software support. So honestly, for the money, you are getting quite a bit. That being said though, whether or not this phone is actually the best choice depends on where you are, because on one hand in the US, you can easily get a phone like the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE or the Google Pixel 6a, both of which are a significant step up from this phone for somewhere around probably the same price as this. And again, those phones are significantly better. But on the other hand, I have heard that outside the US, phones like the S21 FE are going for quite a bit more than this. And depending on your region, while again this phone is around $327 factory unlocked in the US, it might be even less where you are. So when it comes to pricing and availability and stuff like that, I would definitely recommend looking around on places like eBay and Swappa and stuff like that, because I feel like you can find some pretty good deals for this phone. But in general, even aside from all that, again, for the money, you are getting quite a bit here. And for what it is, if you are looking for a more affordable 5G phone that has plenty of storage, a really nice looking display, a great camera, really good performance, and a large battery, you're definitely not going to go wrong with the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G. Now again, if you want to learn more about this phone, definitely check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipis Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.